What's up, everybody? I'm back. And yeah, I've already been back for a couple weeks, but I'm back in a different way today. Today, as you can tell by the title, we got a zombies video for you guys. I put out a tweet asking what is the best Treyarch map of all time, and I know before you click out of this video, this is not going to be just another top 10 best zombie maps or ranking the best zombie maps from worst to best. No, today we're going to take a data-driven look at what is, not subjectively, what actually is the best Treyarch zombies map of all time. First, I'm going to show you what my opinion is, and yes, that part will be subjective, although I decided to do it in a little bit of a different way than you've seen before. Secondly, I'm going to tell you what your opinion is. Yes, your opinion. I know what it is. Kind of. Technically, it's not exactly your opinion, but it's a conglomerate of multiple thousands of opinions that will basically tell us what is the accurate opinion across all of the community. I'm going to look at what other content creators think, and I have about 20 of them in the community that given me their best to worst map rankings. We're going to look into what some clowns think, and you'll see what I mean by that as we go along the video. We'll look at some blogs. We're going to look at pretty much the entire internet offering of what the opinion is on Treyarch zombies. So I encourage you to sit back, relax. This is going to be a bit of a longer video, so if you don't have time to watch it now, click out of it and come back to it at another time. Put it on your to-watch list because I want you guys to watch this through and through and put this conversation to rest. What is the best zombie map by Treyarch of all time? Before we dive in, I want you guys to leave a comment right now, putting what you think the top 10 list is going to be by the end of this video. Before I give you any information, what do you think number 1 is? What do you think number 10 is? And what do you think the worst map is? Leave a comment right now. First off, let me break down the formula that we're going to use to determine which map is best. Just kidding. We're going to take 3 different sources and weight each of those sources of compiled data to determine an overall score for each map. First, we're going to take 60% weight value of community data. This is via a poll I conducted. It had about 32,000 votes at the time I took the final standings from it. This is likely the best way to determine truly which is the best map in zombies, as it takes thousands and thousands of opinions and crunches those opinions down to hard numbers. This is basically going to tell us how many people like which maps best. At the end of the day, numbers don't lie. Secondly, I'm going to give 35% weight value to content creator data. This is compiled of all the complete up-to-date, within the last week up-to-date, rankings from fellow YouTubers like myself. I also included myself in this because technically I am a creator, I am part of the community, so I figured it'd only be fair. I'm giving this source a 35% weight value because the public interest and the opinion of the game, in my opinion anyway, is heavily influenced by this creative community. Maybe more so than other communities. I personally think that the zombie creators very much drive the opinion and the overall aura of each game. I believe that very much so, and that's an opinion, so we'll keep that to myself, but I think 35% is probably somewhere in the ballpark. And at the end of the video, I will actually go and give you multiple different breakdowns because this part of the video right here is probably the most subjective. It's the most opinionative of the entire video. The rest of it is going to be extremely data-driven, I would say. But this part right here, the formula in which we're using to calculate the total scores, can be considered opinionative. And since I put it together, I thought it'd only be fair that I give you guys a way to change these numbers to whatever percent you guys want to give each value to, whichever one you think is the most important, and see how that affects the outcome. And we'll do that at the very end. However, I would argue that the content creator portion can be even more valuable than what I'm giving it credit for. I'm only giving it 35%. I think it could be upwards of 40-45% of what the total score should look like. But I think numbers, broad spectrum, thousands and thousands of votes, at the end of the day should be the most important thing. It's a democracy, essentially, type vote. So for the sake of the video, I'm not going to give too much influence to the influencers. And the last 5%, a very measly 5%, is going to be various public opinion. Basically, there's not a whole lot out there that's credible source. You got some articles from IGN, you got some random Reddit threads. The most credible, I guess you could say, public opinion would be from Tiermaker, which has about 400 compiled different Tiermaker lists that condenses them all into one final Tiermaker list, and we'll be using that as our primary source. The secondary source for this is going to be an article that lists ranked maps based on votes on that map in a way that works similar to Reddit with upvotes and downvotes. All the sources used in this video are all in the description if you want to check facts and make sure I got everything right. Don't worry about it. It's all there. Now, regarding this public opinion, I have to say my opinion of their opinion is their opinion's whack. Truthfully, and as you'll see towards the end of the video, their opinion is quite different than, I would say, the more intense community. I'd say the creative community, like the YouTubers, the people who post on Twitch, the people who make videos about zombies as a game, differs greatly than what I would call our casual players that tend to be the people voting on these online forums. But that is my opinion, and if you want my opinion, you're gonna have to keep watching the video. I do have to give them at least 5% because at the end of the day, as laughable as some of these opinions are, they count too, and I had to include them. So 5% is what I'm giving them. I toyed with giving them 10%, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I just don't trust these guys to know what's a good map and what's not. We may refer to these people again during the video as the casual vote. Oh boy, I hope I don't sound like an asshole already. All right, before we dive in, I said I would give you guys my opinion on the matter. So I decided to do my ranking, my opinionative ranking, before I did the actual data ranking, just to see how my opinion compares to the objective opinion. So I asked a couple of you guys on Twitter for your favorite maps, just to see, you know, some random opinions here and there. And I have to say that I was quite disappointed in some of the responses I got. First of all, please tell me who in their right mind wants to play Die Rise or 5. Please. Let me just get this straight here. You pull out Black Ops the game, right? You pop it into your console, you turn on your PC, you're gonna go in and play, and you choose to play 5. Of all maps on that game, you choose to play 5. Tell me, are you just so bored in lockdown that you would prefer torture over boredom itself? Because that's what you're doing. You're torturing yourself by playing these trash maps. Absolute garbage maps. Look at this. Black Ops 2. You got Black Ops 2. In my opinion, a phenomenal game. One of Treyarch's best. You slide that into your little slit there. Boom. Game loads up. The music's playing. You got a list of maps to play from. Great maps to play from. Arguably some of the best, and we'll find out if they are or not. And you say, yo, I'm gonna play Die Rise. What is wrong with you? No, you're not playing Die Rise. Unless you like self-inflicted pain. Because apparently you do. Gosh. Also, who the flying f thinks Zetsubo no Shima is better than Dreisendrach? I don't know, man. Unless you have a fetish for botany, I am seriously questioning your choice in Zetsubo over Dreisen. I don't understand it. I do not understand it. What are your motives here? Do you love biology that much? Do you like watering plants? If you do, that's fine, but playing video games is not the way to do it. Go outside and water some plants. Also, you guys are no stranger to this. Kino, do I even have to talk about Kino? Kino looks like someone pureed a newspaper. They put it in a blender, they lit that up, pureed it to a smooth gray liquid, drank it, puked it back up, and then threw it all over the walls, all over the map. They're just like, you get some newspaper puke, you get some newspaper puke, you get some newspaper puke. I mean, look at this. This right here. This is Kino right here. This is Kino. This is the entire map. There you go. You got the whole map right there. Big fucking gray blob. All right, I'm gonna move on. I'm sorry. 5 again. To think that 5 is in the top 10 maps of all time is almost as bad as Noah's hairline. I said it. I said it. I mean, come on, dude. Lex's forehead is bigger than 5. It's a forehead and it's bigger than 5. That's how puny and insignificant. What is, I don't get it. I don't get it. Who likes these maps? Sorry, we're just finishing up salad. Salad. Jesus fuck, man. I ate one broccoli and I can't even breathe. Ugh. All right, here's my list. And I'm gonna break this down for you pretty quickly, like under 5 minutes, which is about the same amount of time I can spend in transit fog before I take a PS4 controller and smash it on my chair.
Whoever's out, Jason.
No!
What happened?
No!
No
Did you
way.
just lag out? Did you just lag out? The man! He just
You kidding me?
Matt! Oh my gosh!
No way.
So I made one of those tier maker lists, and here that is, and here's me throwing that in the trash can. as I think that's most fitting. But to give you my more extensive breakdown, I've broken each map into a total possible score of 50 points, with 5 categories worth up to 10 points each. Those categories are game mechanics, innovation, storyline and Easter egg, environment, weapons, wonder weapon, and finally, replayability. I tried to be as unbiased as possible when scoring each map. Now, these results surprised me a little, as my quote-unquote favorite maps are actually not what I scored as the best maps. And I think this is where there's a lot of varying opinion, because I think if you were to objectively score each map in an unbiased perspective based on what you thought each category deserved, I think your results would actually be different than what your favorite map is, because the best maps are actually a lot of the time not your favorite maps. There's a certain reason why each map is your favorite, and I bet you can think about it on the spot if you tried, but that doesn't always mean overall that map is technically the best, and I'll show you guys how that breaks down. So as you can see here on my scorecard, Mob of the Dead is number 1 by a very slim margin over Origins and Der Eisendrache. Now I think this is pretty obvious. I think a lot of people, for the most part, have the understanding that these maps in the general top 10 are pretty widespread top 10 maps for most people, and we'll find out if that's true or not later on. But as far as my scorecard goes, there's a couple things to note here. 1, Mob of the Dead and Origins scored the highest, even though Mob of the Dead is definitely not one of my favorite maps. I gave it an 8 for game mechanics, as I did for all of Black Ops 2 games, and you can see that throughout the rankings, that almost every map within a certain game, so like Black Ops 2, almost all of them have 8. Black Ops 3, I gave a 9, just because the game mechanics and the infrastructure of the game with the gobblegums, the perk system, the way that things worked, the fluidity of the movements, that kind of stuff. I think generally across the board, each game should be about the same score. There are a couple scenarios where I did not do that, and that are maps like Transit, which no matter how you slice it, it doesn't matter if it's on Black Ops 2 or not. The map was hot garbage. This much. Because of the flog and the denizens, and you guys know what the problems are. But the point is, for the most part, the game mechanics are the same across the board for each game. Secondly, innovation. This is a extremely important category in my opinion. I think for each map to innovate and to create something new to the experience of zombies, whether it ends up being just in that map or throughout the whole series, is incredibly important. And a lot of times, Treyarch gets innovation correct. They do a great job of bringing in new things that are fun, they're good for gameplay, they're not annoying, aka Transit, but sometimes they don't do it so well. And that innovation score for me is a wide range. And generally speaking, the top maps tend to have a good innovation score, as you can see. Maps like Buried are some of the only maps in a series that have a specific perk, and I think that has special value for that map. The next thing is storyline and lore, and I think this one is actually more subjective than I initially thought it might be, and it's because of the way that the Easter eggs are formed, right? The steps that are involved to do an Easter egg can be by some considered tedious and by others considered unique and interesting and fun, and some people like logical Easter eggs that make sense and work together really well, and some people like extravagant adventurous type things that have no kind of correlation or meaning to what's going on, but they're fun to actually do. And so I think this one's a little harder to grade, but you can see once again all the top maps have pretty much a 7 or higher, and the very top of the top has a 9. The next category is environment, wonder weapons, and weapons in general. I think this is probably the most even range. I don't think there's any one particular map that's got just incredibly better than everyone else. I do think that there are a couple maps that have absolutely horrible weapons, horrible wonder weapons, and disgusting environments, aka Kino, but you can see the scores there. And the last thing is replayability. When taking replayability into account, I didn't consider what I like to play the most. I considered, what do I see the community playing the most? How often do I see people streaming this map? How often do I see people saying, oh, let's go play this? Can we hop on and play this? And I think, believe it or not, there's only one perfect score in this entire scorecard, and that is for replayability of Riese. And I don't think there's any argument to be made against this. Riese has been remade, I don't even know how many times. I don't even know. It's been remade the most out of any map, I'm pretty sure about that, and people still play it. We went back and played World at War version of Riese the other day, and it was phenomenal. This map has stood the test of time. It's been around as long as pretty much any other map aside from the early World at War maps, and it's still one of the most played maps, and for that I had to give it a 10 score replayability. There are a couple other ones that scored super high, notably Shadows of Evil, Mob of the Dead, Origins, the ones that you hear about all the time. It's because people are still playing these maps, and I think that to me is the replayability score that matters the most. It's not about what I want to go play, it's about what is everyone still playing. Some other notes you should know about: I gave Black Ops 3 the highest game mechanics score, and I gave Black Ops 4 the worst score. I actually gave it about even with World at War, aside from a couple maps. You can also note that on the side, I gave each map a list of pros and cons, and I truthfully found it pretty hard to pick out cons for a lot of the maps. As you would expect, the top maps had less cons, and the bottom maps had more cons, and that's kind of where I came up with each score overall, right? It should be fluent in that way. But I have to tip my cap to Treyarch, as I guess I'm feeling pretty kind today, because a lot of these maps, I really had a hard time picking out things that I were like, wow, this is actually terrible. These are, when I think about playing this map, all I think about is how bad the Panzers are, or how bad it is that George Romero's annoying as shit, or how much people love botany and how much I don't give a flying about watering plants. I have to admit that I haven't played Black Ops 4 maps very much. I've only played a handful of them a couple times, so my scorecard on these is probably not the most accurate. I will say though that the reason I didn't play these maps is because I just didn't even care. I didn't even want to play them. I didn't feel like Black Ops 4 was the game I liked at all, and for that reason, I think it's justified that I gave these maps lower scores. However, it's hard to score something that you haven't played enough to really know what you like and dislike about it. It's kind of just an overarching theme of I don't really like Black Ops 4's mechanisms, and I just didn't really care that much at that point. So for me, they're all going to be lower scores. But to be fair, I decided to go to Twitter and ask you guys who have played Black Ops 4 religiously, what did you dislike most about these maps? And so here are some of the answers that you guys gave. Alpha Omega, uninspired remake, Blood of the Dead, Easter egg isn't fun, Dead of the Night, reduced the Nosferatu spawns and you got a great map, Voyage, a bit too cramped, getting around south. Honestly, the gameplay in the field doesn't feel as fluid as Black Ops 3, and the feel of the guns isn't the same. Now all the maps feel out of whack, and lack of contrast and uniqueness between all of the maps. I hate nothing about the maps themselves, they're just on the wrong game. Black Ops 4 mechanics are garbage. Alpha Omega has narrow pathways, Blood of the Dead, Easter egg challenges are hard, Tagger Toten has no boss fight. My problem was that the Aether maps were essentially remakes. Personally, it was a huge letdown. Voyage of Despair was too tight close quarters. Blood of the Dead was the worst Easter egg steps ever made. Tag was pretty good, but budget cuts ruined it. Should have been an epic boss fight. Vampires were straight up frustrating. Voyage was too cramped and enclosed. An Easter egg boss fight wasn't fun. Black Ops 4 perk system, where did my boy Jug go? Graphics, and seems nothing like a Treyarch game. Alpha Omega gas crawlers, Blood of the Dead, literally everything. The gameplay, story, Easter egg was the whole 9 yards. Terrible. Tagger Toten, horrible writing and god awful main quest. Voyage was too cramped. I think it's needless to say that the majority of people didn't like the maps themselves for certain reasons, but the main overarching theme was that people don't like remakes, myself included, and people didn't like the mechanics of the game. The perk system was entirely different, which I think really threw people off for the first time, and I don't think it worked out overall. For whatever reason, the game mechanics, like people have said, how I rated it in my scorecard, were just very severely lacking in comparison to the greatness that Black Ops 3 provided. Lastly, I would love to know your comments and critiques on the scoreboard I put together here, so leave a comment down below. Let me know where you guys disagree and where I scored something in a different way that you would, and why. I really want to hear the critiques on what you guys think on this. Now, I did say this was going to take under 5 minutes, and the fog is rolling in, so let's move on. Now let's take a look at the overall rankings. First, we have the community vote, which is worth 60% weighted value of the total score. I asked you guys on YouTube, Twitter, Discord, and pretty much everywhere to vote for your favorite 10 zombie maps. At the time of this recording, about 32,000 votes were tallied. Shockingly, the number of votes separating the top map from the number 2 map was only 3 votes. And to this very minute, checking right now, the gap is even smaller. It's 1 vote difference. The top 5 maps were as follows: Der Eisendrache at number 1, Origins number 2, Mob of the Dead number 3, Shadows of Evil number 4, and Garad Karovi number 5. Coming in at the bottom 5 were Blood of the Dead, Alpha Omega, Tagger Toten, Dead of the Night, and Voyage of Despair, all Black Ops 4 maps. Interesting. Let's move on to the content creators vote. I said that a massive part of this community is driven and influenced by the content creators who lead with their theories, tutorials, Easter egg hunts, and videos. So I asked 20 of them how they would rank each Treyarch map from best to worst. This list is probably the most up-to-date and comprehensive one that you can find right now anywhere on the internet. I also think this is probably the most accurate list due to the fact that it's been years since a lot of these maps have come out. We've had time time to digest them, replay them, revisit them, burn out on them, and then come back. As such, these rankings should be some of the most well-documented that have ever existed. Many of these YouTubers have mentioned that their rankings change frequently, and that makes sense. Even I feel differently now when going back and playing some of these maps. Like Pat's retrospective series has said, the zombie maps as a whole breed new opinions over time, many of which are now matured. So with that in mind, here are the 20 rankings that I've gathered. I'll let you guys take a few seconds to digest this, and then I'll walk you through to help you understand what to make of it. Okay, so some of the overarching themes that you can draw from really studying this data. 1, Black Ops 3 is hands down the best Treyarch game as far as individually ranked maps. Riese, Garage Karovi, and Shadows of Evil are almost always in the top 10 favorites amongst the creators. My belief is that the game had some of the best mechanics combined with a good amount of innovation and a rich dive into the lore of the Aether storyline. Now you take that and you add boss fights, new wonder weapons, and even more in-game interactive features, and you can really begin to understand what makes Black Ops 3 sit at the top of the rankings. Secondly, nostalgia plays a big factor, in my opinion. Maps like Nocturne Toten and Riese are still beating out maps that are hands down higher scoring in innovation, lore, Easter eggs, wonder weapons, and map environment. But yet, Nocturne Toten, Riese still have higher rankings than those in most people's rankings. But yet, the replayability of some of these iconic Black Ops 1 and World at War maps drive them to a much higher standing on the rankings. Higher than many Black Ops 4 maps, which are definitely more complex and diverse than anything that could have been created on World at War. Third, Black Ops 4 tends to be one of the lowest ranked games based overall on map score. Aside from Ancient Evil and 9, many of the Black Ops 4 maps are still a sour taste in many people's mouths. Voids of Despair, Dead of the Night, Classified, and Blood of the Dead tend to be some of the lowest ranking maps across the board. A lot of the hate stems from these maps being a lot of remakes, honestly, and even the new DLC maps in Black Ops 4 didn't fare well due to a variety of reasons that we just talked about, such as poor game mechanics and tedious quests. Now, I will admit that I am missing a couple rankings from people that I really wanted to see be on this list. People that are critical to this community, and those two that come to mind are Milo, aka Mr. Roth Waffles, and Noah J456. I didn't get a response from either of them, and unfortunately they're not included in this. I will say, although we don't have them, I don't think their opinions would have changed the overall rankings much, if at all. But I should note that they aren't in here, and I wish that they were. With that being said, it is a pretty consistent theme that the YouTubers tend to like Mob of the Dead, Shadows of Evil, Origins, Garage Karovi, and Der Eisendrock in the top 5 more often than not. Some large outliers were Glitching Queen, who had Blood of the Dead as her #1 map, and Moon, #3, Revelations #4. This is wildly different than almost every other ranking I have seen on my list of thousands of rankings. Blood of the Dead, as you can tell from this chart, is almost always in the bottom half, if not the bottom 5 to 10 maps. But Queen has it #1, and I'm curious why. So Queen, if you're watching this video, leave a comment and let us know why it's #1 for you. Other notable standouts, Reed, Conway, and Starburst all had unique maps in the top. They had Shangri-La, Ancient Evil, and Riese in their top 3. Now, like I said, we got a Black Ops 1 map, a World at War map, and a Black Ops 4 map. None of those games are arguably the top 2 games in the series as far as map rankings go. Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 tend to have the highest ranked maps. None of these games are like that, and to me that was quite interesting that these guys chose to have some of these maps that are definitely not widely popular as their top 3. A couple other notable selections, Johnny J had Verrucht as his #3, which was never, as far as I can say, never in the top 10 for almost anyone who ranked all of the maps. Crazy Rabbit had Moon, and MJPW CW Gaming also had Moon as number 1 and number 3. Again, their rankings are quite different than the majority of people, and I think that's a common theme when you see someone have a bit of a different top 3. Generally, their entire rankings are quite different, and it's probably just because they have different taste. But their votes counted, and that's kind of what put this whole thing as a whole into a data-driven solution. So without further ado, our final content creator rankings came out to Riese as number 1 with a total score of 482, Mob of the Dead 2nd, Origins 3rd, Shadows of Evil 4th, Garad Kurovi 5th, then Ascension, Riese, Call of the Dead, Moon, and 9 as the bottom 5 of the top 10. I think overall, looking at this creator list, I have to agree with it for the most part. It is quite similar to what I would rank mine, and you can see my ranking right over here. It is not exact, but it's close. It's close in the general vicinity. I don't think there's any map that's more than 5 spaces away of where I had it. Lastly, we can look at the casual vote, which is only worth 5%, but is comprised of actually just 2 things. We had it with the tier maker and a blog from ranker.com. As you can see, the tier maker had they did have Origins and Mob of the Dead as number 1 and number 2, and Riese as number 5. So overall, generally speaking, it's similar more or less to the content creator vote. However, 2 maps were outliers. Kino der Toten, barf, and Riese, good map, but definitely not a top 5 map considering what it is. In the top 5 at number 3 and number 4, and Buried, Ascension, and Moon in a reasonable spot. It had Kino der Toten at number 4 and Riese at number 5. Those are out of place compared to the other votes we've seen so far, and it makes me think that a lot of the people who voted on tier maker are really playing that nostalgia factor more than anything, because again, breaking down Riese, it's a great map, don't get me wrong, the replayability off the charts. But when you compare it against newer maps that have way more complex systems and innovation and Easter eggs and lore, there's just no way you can say that Riese is soundly a better map than some of these newer maps. And as great as it might be, I think the nostalgia for these voters was so overbearing on the rest of the factors in what makes a map great that it got a higher ranking than I think it personally deserves, and that generally it deserved in general. Oh my god, that was stupid. And generally that it got overall from most voters. But there it is, the tier maker list. Other notable points, you got Buried, Ascension, and Moon all came in ahead of Shadows of Evil and Garad Kurovi. And again, I think this is very much relying on the fact that nostalgia is a massive factor for a lot of our casual voters. And I understand that. People love to think, oh my god, the first time I played this map, this is how I felt. And it's very hard to have that same feeling ever again. And so for that reason, they probably put these maps a bit higher than I would actually rank them. The second thing was ranker.com. It's a blog, and again, it had similar results. You have Mob of the Dead, Origins, Riese in the top 5, and then Kino in number 4 and Riese in number 5. So you have the same kind of thing happening here. The casual vote seems to consist of these maps are generally accepted as being some of the best, but nostalgia plays a major factor in our opinion of every other map. So for that reason, Kino, Riese, Buried, Ascension, Moon, Call of the Dead, older maps are all making it up higher on the rankings. So for an overall total ranking of Origins number 1, Mob of the Dead number 2, Kino at number 3, Riese 4, Riese number 5, and then you can see the rest there. This is only 5% of the total vote though, so don't get too caught up on these rankings. Okay, you've made it this far in the video, give yourself a pat in the back and slap that like button real quick. After hours of intense computation and extreme machine learning, we finally have the opinion of thousands of people, and we have output what I believe to be the most accurate and factual, and quite possibly the most objective zombie map ranking of all time. But before I show you, again, I want you to leave a comment down below letting me know what you guys think the list is going to look like. To make it simple, give me your top 5 based on what you think the answers will be and your worst map of all time. And here it is. Oh, wait. Transit's number 1? What? That can't be right. I'm just kidding. It's not Transit. Come on, man. No, seriously, Transit actually is number 1. You can't deny. Innovation's off the charts. Quick reminder, community vote is worth 60%, content creator vote is worth 35%, and the casual vote is worth 5% out of a total possible score of 30. So the highest score can be a 30, the lowest score would be a 0. And without further ado, let's do it. Coming in at number 10, we have, ironically, the map 9 from Black Ops 4. Coming in at number 9, we have one of my favorite maps still to this day, Moon from Black Ops 1. Coming in at number 8, and I think this is largely due to the nostalgia factor, Keener der Toten, which I will say again, completely disagree with, but this is data. This is proven math. So Kino is number 8. Coming in just above that at number 7 with a total score of 22.10. A big nostalgia factor, Riese. Coming in at number 6 from Black Ops 3, JC's favorite, Gorod Karovi with a total score of 23.8. Then above that at number 5, I am so happy that people recognize this map for how good it actually is. Buried from Black Ops 2 with a score of 24.7. Was actually tied with Black Ops 3's disc map, Shadows of Evil, which I gave the number 4 spot because generally speaking, I think that Shadows of Evil had a little bit of a higher rating overall. If I had to give a gut feeling, which is totally against the entire purpose of this video, I'm kidding. They both had a score of 24.7, so you can put them at number 4 each, or number 4, number 5, whatever you want to do. But Shadows of Evil and Buried are both there in the very high spots. Now, this is where the math gets funky. I think you can probably determine by this point that Der Eisendrache, Mob of the Dead, and Origins are almost consistently the top 3 maps in a lot of people's votes. And you can see here that the community vote has Der Eisen first, Content Creator has Der Eisen first, casual vote has Origins first. And then the next 2, Mob of the Dead or Origins, with only Kino being the outlier here from the casuals, but we don't really care about the casuals. They're not that important. Sorry, guys. So, where do you think each map ranks? I'm gonna go back real quick and remind you that I ranked on my personal chart, Der Eisen first, Origin second, and Gorod Karovi third. Mob of the Dead wasn't even in the top 5. But on my scorecard, Mob of the Dead was number 1, Origins number 2 by 0.1 points. And not even less, like about a point after was Der Eisendrache, which is my favorite map from a biased perspective, but not the unbiased best map in my opinion. So let's see where they come in here. Number 3, with a score of 26.8 was Mob of the Dead. I think that's pretty good. For a Black Ops 2 map, that's pretty good. Number 2, with a score of 27.4. That's a dang good score. Significantly better than most of these other scores. Also Black Ops 2, Origins. And I love to say it, that my favorite map of all time is now undoubtedly proven by data the best Treyarch Zombies map. Actually, screw that. It's not even the best Treyarch Zombies map. It is the best Zombies map of all time to this point. It came in with a score of 29.75. That's almost a perfect score. And that is because 2 of the 3 top votes, 95% of our ratings had Der Eisen number 1st. And that's based on, you know, our conglomerate. It's not actually 95% of people thinking that. But the casual vote was so low. So that is really why the Der Eisendrache map just number 1 to the top. I also want to point out what the notoriously worst maps are. The results probably won't shock you. All 5 of the bottom 5 are from Black Ops 4. I guess there's a reason I didn't give a flying F about any of these maps after all. Number 25 was Tag der Toten. 26 was Alpha Omega. 27 was Blood of the Dead. 28 was Dead of the Night. And the least favorite map of all Treyarch zombie maps is Transit. I'm just kidding again. It's not Transit. It's Voyage of Despair. It scored a 0.9 out of 30 points. That's bad. And there it is. But before I head out, you guys might be saying, wait a minute, this is a data-driven video. It's supposed to be fact. It's supposed to be numbers don't lie. But Matt picked the percentages. What if casual vote was 90%? Then Origins would surely be number 1 and Der Eisendrache at number 4 would be way lower. Way, way lower. You're right. You are 100% right. So I have made a calculator where you can input whichever percentages you want for each category and see how that alters each map ranking. So for and giggles, just to show you guys how this switches things up here, I'm gonna go ahead and change the community vote. Maybe it's a little bit too overweighted. We'll put it at 0.5% for 50%. We'll give the content creators even less because they're not that important. We'll give them 25%. That's 75%. And we're gonna make the casuals, it's your day. Casuals, you make up the majority of the players most likely. I have no idea if that's true or not. We're gonna give you 25%, 5 times your value so that your ranking means way more than it did before. Now let's go back up and see what these scores are at. Would you look at that? Der Eisendrache is still number 1 with a 28.75. Number 2, closer, much closer, Origins with a 28 flat. Number 3, Mob of the Dead, also much closer with a 27. Number 4, still Shadows of Evil and Buried with a 23.5 each. The rankings didn't really change, and I think the underlying theme is that the top vote for community and creators was still Horizon. No matter how you weigh the differences, it's still Horizon. The only way in which we could get a really different look at things would be if the casual vote was worth a significant amount, the majority amount even, because that ranking is significantly different than the content creator and the community vote. But I don't think it's fair to put the casuals that high because A, there's not that much data there, and B, I don't know if those people voting really have the best understanding. I think it's safe to say that the people that voted in the community are people that play this map or play these maps religiously. They've played it from World at War to Black Ops 4. They've played each map at least once, or give or take. And I think that the content creators obviously have done the same because you've seen them do it. So I think that those votes are probably more valid. They're more credible than these unknown casual votes where we don't really have an understanding of how much knowledge they have about each map or which maps they have played and which maps they haven't played. And that's my reasoning. If you agree with that, that's cool. If you disagree with that, if you guys want to see me do some different calculations, hit my Twitter up. Maybe I'll just do some different ones that you guys request. You can see how it differentiates the overall scores and where the rankings end up. But that's that, guys. It was a long video. I hope you guys watched the whole way through and enjoyed it. And if you did, please give a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. We lose subscribers every time I post a video right now. So if we could, kind of turn that around, that'd be phenomenal. We'll see you guys all next time. Have a good one. Peace out.